Welcome to the Intuitive Inc. radio show live with your host, Servet Hasan, with another inspiring author who can help you discover your true potential. Live on Clear Source Radio.
Hello, everybody. It's Sunday night. The name of the show is Intuitive Inc., and I am indeed Servet Hasan. I have a great show for you tonight because we're going to be talking about body image. And who can't use that? Because if you have a really, really, really good body image and you love it, then you can tune into something else tonight. But I have a feeling that would include most of us out there. Trust me, at one time or another. I have on the line Jennifer Kreatsoulas, who is the founder of Yoga for Eating Disorders. She's a writer. She's a registered yoga teacher. She's a therapist. She contributes monthly to several magazines and publications, Yoga Living magazine, and many more, HuffPost, I'm sure. And she writes and leads workshops on eating disorder recovery and body image, which is where we're going tonight. So, Jennifer, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you tonight.
Oh, thank you. I know you're calling from Pennsylvania, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct, just outside of Philadelphia.
Yes, and I love Philly, and it's late, so I appreciate you being on the phone with me. The one thing I didn't mention in your bio is that you are the author of Body Mindful Yoga, co-author of that book. The subtitle is Create a Powerful and Affirming Relationship with Your Body. And that's what you're here for tonight, because that's coming out November 8th all over the world. So
that's correct.
That's what we're going to be discussing. So I loved this book because body image, especially for young women, is so important. I think that it's good work you're doing. You've written it with Robert Butera, who I know because he co-authored Llewellyn's complete book of mindful living. And I did a couple of chapters for that, and he co-edited that with Aaron, who was on last week. So we're all a family now, and I was going to do 2 yoga shows in a row. But you know what? I kind of thought they kind of built – I thought it was a good idea because they actually are going to build on each other, I think, I mean,
absolutely.
Erin had a lot to say, and we covered so much ground. It was a really interesting show. Now we're going to take it to a different level where we're going to talk about words and how they affect your body and body image. But first of all, before we get to all of that, Jennifer, I have to ask you, how did you get into all of this? Where did this start?
Well, it started with my own personal recovery journey. I've been in recovery from anorexia for over 20 years. It started for me in college, and I guess, over these 20 years of traveling that healing path, finding my way, I've been blessed to now have the opportunity to give back to the world in a way that speaks to me, which is through yoga. So I found yoga in graduate school, started teaching in 2002, and I really believe that during that period of, teaching yoga, practicing yoga, that really reinforced my recovery and helped me maintain health for a very, very, very long time. It was after, finishing graduate school, getting a full-time job, getting married, having children, when there was less and less time for me to be, doing that practice, that the eating disorder started to slip back in. And after my second daughter was born, I had a very, very severe relapse. In fact, I was hospitalized before she turned 1. It was swift and it was severe. But I will say that it was one of the most absolute best things that could have ever happened, because it opened me up to realizing my purpose, which was to become a yoga therapist and now give back in this way. When I got out of treatment, it was very clear to me that I had to get yoga back into my life. I had to get my passions back into my life. You know, motherhood has been wonderful, but it's also been one of the greatest challenges. And I really lost myself in that. And in the overwhelm and in losing myself, you know, that it really made space for that illness to kind of come in and take root again. So leaving treatment was very much, you know what, I need to get my passions back in my life. This includes writing. It includes my yoga practice, maybe look into teaching. And I needed to change my career. I was a medical writer for 7 years after graduate school, loved the job, but I always had this nagging feeling there was more for me to do, and I could never figure out what it was. And when I came out of treatment, I decided I need to put my mind to figuring out what it was. I started working with a coach, and I don't even know how it happened, but I ended up on the Yoga Life Institute website, which is Bob's studio, Bob's Institute, and was reading about this yoga therapy program, and my whole entire body started to shake. My heart was pounding. It was like, yes, this is what I'm meant to do. And luckily, I'm really blessed. I live, you know, a half hour from the Institute, registered for the program right away, completed the 3-year program. I didn't go into the program expecting to work with others in recovery. It never crossed my mind. But as I moved through the program and started really doing that deep self-study, it just came clear to me that, you know what, if I'm going to be an expert in anything, it's going to be this 20-some years of recovery and this, you know, 15, 16 years of practicing yoga. And now after studying with Bob and Aaron and, you know, his staff of incredible teachers who've completely changed my life, I have a much greater, deeper connection with my yoga practice. It's no longer confined to, you know, being on a mat. It's my life. So it's really, you know, it's really given me the yoga therapy program, my relapse. I don't know, that my life just has opened up so much because of both of those events.
Everything happens for a reason. I don't think there are any accidents in life, you know? And
no.
And also you learn what you teach more. I mean, you get better at what you teach too. So, and now you're helping people and you are giving back, and that's awesome because you went through a lot. And you know, we're going to talk about body image, but you know, like being anorexic is, whether you're too thin or you're obese, you're too heavy, it's the same mechanics in the brain that are going on. It's the same error in the world. Do you know what I mean? It's
absolutely
right. So it does. I mean, so you went through it, and that's even better because you know you've been there. You know.
Well, absolutely. And so when I'm working with my yoga therapy clients one-on-one, you know, when I'm doing a consultation with them, I always say, you know, I've been on my own journey. We speak the same language. Like, there's nothing you can say, do, share that I probably didn't at some point also. So there's no judgment. I get it. And I think, you know, having that shared experience creates so much trust with my clients. You know, and it's a blessing. It's a blessing to speak the language that I speak, because now I can give back in this really profound way.
Right. Yes. And the book is a direct result of that, Body Mindful Yoga.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, and it is about creating a powerful and affirming relationship with your body, which also has a lot to do with your mind, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Our words are our reality. Our words shape everything.
Right. Yeah, it's true. But it's also, our perception too of ourselves too, because I haven't, you know, I'm not an expert. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a doctor, but I've worked with women who have been particularly, bulimic for some reason, that kind of, and I always start with, what are you not letting into your life? Like, you don't want to be penetrated by anything at all. You can't keep anything in. So let's go there. And I liked your book because, you know, you don't talk about that like I am, but you go there. You go to that kind of, what are you saying to yourself? What are you doing? you know, and in an indirect way, that's really important. So let's start with that, because
sure.
What is body image to you? What's the definition of body image?
It's the word that you used, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's perception. It's
Mm-hmm.
a combination of our perception, our imagination, memories. It's a narrative that all of those things combine to create within us. It's socially influenced. It's culturally influenced. It's, influenced by our families, by our peers. And I really believe it's a narrative, that plays about whether it's parts of our body or our entire body, or how we don't measure up, how we don't fit in, how we're not good enough.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean it has to be negative. We often talk about body image as like, that phrase is like automatically negative. But I think that when we can actually realize that body image is a perception, I think that can be such a life-changing moment if you can really take that in and believe it.
Right. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I think if we can really take that in as truth, that our body image is a perception, that the script is a perception, that, if we're talking about negative body image, all of the demeaning words that we say to ourselves is based on a perception and not fact, that there's an opening there, there's possibility there. There's a chance to rewrite the script. And I think that is a very empowering moment in someone's relationship with themselves.
Right. You say it in the book. You say it well in the book. You say it is a perception, not a fact. And once you realize that, then you can understand that it's not real. It's just a perception of what you think is real. And then also in the book too, you say, body image is not necessarily always about fixing or changing or controlling or correcting your body. Sometimes it's validating and honoring and affirming it as well, It's also a perception.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what Bob and I hope to do with this book is to provide people a foundation, a method, an approach to moving toward that more affirming relationship.
Absolutely. And I think you do it well. I do. I think you do it very well.
Thank you.
I have a new book I'm working on because last year I was diagnosed with a very rare form of ovarian cancer, and I am 9 months cancer free. It's
amazing.
Thank you. I'm writing a book called If Life is a Cosmic Comedy, What Am I Still Doing Here? And the subtitle is how I kicked cancer's ass and found my mojo. But the reason I'm bringing this up, because this is about you and your book, there's one chapter in there besides, why can't you send your family back? And if he said he couldn't live without me, how come he's not dead? But there's one chapter in there that's called Why Diets Always Made Me Gain Weight. And it reminded me of when I was reading this book of yours, your book, Body Mindful Yoga. I was like, see, your perception shifts and you start to think of yourself as fat because suddenly you need to lose weight. And whenever I do that, I get so annoyed with myself and play stupid games with myself that before I know it, I'm on a diet and I've put on 5 pounds. So, and I talk about that and I touch on some of these things in your book that made that even more clear to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think, a big piece of the book is allowing people an opportunity to look at how they receive language, right? So it's not just the words that we say to ourselves, it's how we receive and absorb words, right? And then how they translate internally. And so that word diet, that's a huge word. Those
Yeah.
4 little letters, that's a huge word. And it does make us feel heavy.
Yep.
Right? Because what happens is we rely on this external plan. We become removed from our ability to connect with our natural hunger and fullness cues, right? We try to contort them to fit this plan. We stop trusting ourselves, and we lose touch. And so all that self-doubt is heavy. That's a heavy feeling to carry around.
Right, it is. And you also say this in your book too, that you're not just shifting your perception, you're shifting your being. And see, when you do that, then you don't need words like diet, because you're not, if you're going on the way I lose weight is when I stop thinking about it and stop making food important. I'm not eating my feelings, I'm bored. I think I'll go get something.
Yeah.
Right? So
Exactly. And we're not in that trap of, morality language around food. Like, I'm being good today. I'm being bad today. I was in the store this afternoon and I overheard a woman talking to another woman just saying, oh, I wish pizza didn't taste so good. I wish this didn't taste so good, and it's, in the moment that the women were having a chuckle, but if you think about how many times, that woman may have said that very line to herself. And now pizza is a bad food. And if she eats it, she's morally bad. And it's the repetition, right? You talk about like changing our being, like, well, the book's really hoping to help people change their being and their brains, right? And it's like, it's the repetition of hearing that kind of morality language around food. And then your moral integrity gets wrapped up into what you're eating. And everything's so charged. Yoga teaches us that, reality is neutral. Food is actually neutral.
Right.
But we have mapped so many moral definitions. We've confused the meaning of food, and we have a hard time understanding or trusting how to feed ourselves. Right? So we just keep getting more and more removed from our natural sense, our natural beings.
Right, exactly. So this is how you bring yoga and into this whole concept, is being mindful, being relaxed, using the practice to calm the thoughts, the energy, right?
True. We
add
add in this layer of paying attention to your internal dialogue when you're doing your practices.
Okay.
So the first half of the book where we're, for example, talking about morality language and food, we also talk about fitness and the combat language that's mapped into fitness. And we have a chapter on social media where we just give people an opportunity to think about, how they're relating to social media, what comes up for them when they're, online on these different social media platforms, and really trying to empower people to study that relationship and point out like, oh, well, when I'm looking at this feed, I start to feel really disempowered, or I start to feel really anxious, or I start to like really hate on my body. And then come to that realization, and then we offer some ways to make a shift from that disempowering place to a more affirming one through language. And then the yoga practices, whether they're yoga poses, mantras, affirmations, we offer some visual practices, some auditory practices, and those practices are meant to then be a place where you can start integrating new affirming language, to start rewiring the brain, to start getting comfortable with that new language, trying on new language. Because I get that, we don't just wake up and start loving ourselves, or we don't just say a nice thing and all of our body image problems are solved. Like, no, I get that. Mm-hmm. But yoga as a practice is a really phenomenal opportunity to bring in that level of language, and start working on that inner dialogue, paying attention to what's coming up when you're doing your practices, bringing in some body mindful language. So body mindfulness is being mindful of how we're talking about our bodies. Like, this is not something we're taught in our world. Right? It's much more normalized to stand in the grocery store line and talk to a stranger about how much you hate your, this body part or that body part, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've all heard it or maybe even done it because
Right.
that's what we're trained to do. And this is saying, no, we need to cut that out because it's hurting our kids. It's hurting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the last chapter is like, how do we go out and model this more, body mindfulness in the world?
Exactly.
But really, the yoga practices are so key because we need to heal the language in ourselves,
Yeah, exactly. I remember Adele, the singer Adele, when she was first starting out, a lot of people were on her about her weight. And she said, you know what? She said, I love my body. And leave me alone. And she didn't lose weight until after she had a baby, I think. But I remember her saying that, and I went, good for you. Go, girl.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, it's your body, it's your life, and she sings like a freaking queen. So I was like, I think if you're that self-aware, then good for you. And that does a lot for young girls who are out there, or anybody, older, young, doesn't matter, male or female. If you're overweight, to start by not beating yourself up about it and always thinking you gotta fix it, change it, do something, and just relax and be okay with that to start with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, whatever your body size is or shape, this isn't, about being overweight, really. This is about how do we learn to be in our bodies and how do we find the tools to help us affirm them? Because these are not tools that we're taught.
Right. And you found that out yourself, for real.
Yeah, absolutely. And now as a mother of 2 young girls, you better believe, like, I will move mountains to make sure that they are modeled, for as long as I can control, body mindfulness, because,
right.
We don't realize how making offhand comments, in front of our kids can affect them. And it does.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Of course it does. How old are they? Can I ask? How old are your daughters?
Yeah, they're 7 and 5.
Yes, see? That's exactly when it influences them the most, And they remember.
Yeah.
They remember. They're like little sponges. They're soaking it all in. And if mommy's walking around going, I'm not eating. Food's bad. Food's bad.
Yeah,
food's bad.
Yeah. Food's bad. I feel so guilty. I need to burn this off. Right?
They hear that. And I think in the end, too, with my daughter, when she was young and even with myself, I've always just tried to promote being healthy mentally and physically, and never really looked at food or weight or anything like that. I just wanted to be healthy, and I think this is awesome. So the name of the book is Body Mindful Yoga. So the way you explain it in the book too is interesting. You have 4 steps on the path. So I want to discuss that a little bit too, and the social media stuff too. That I want to go back to that in a bit, but first, because that's so important in this day and age now, it's everywhere. We're
sure.
But let's talk about the four steps first. They are listen, learn, love, and live. What brought you to that point, to those 4 key elements?
This was Bob's wisdom coming through in the book. He's, been teaching yoga for 30 years. He studied in India. He's written several books. He's my teacher, mentor. And so in his journey of teaching and then doing self-study and thinking about, how's my teaching reaching my students? And he talks about in the book, he shares some stories of going and teaching, and some of these workshops flopped, and he would, kind of scratch his head and think, why did that happen? And so he came to these 4 steps as a way of making some yoga concepts more accessible to, modern people. And one of his biggest realizations that he shares about is, we need to help people recognize their starting point. If there's a change they want to make in their life, right? What's the starting point? Where are they right now? So in relation to our book, it's where are you right now in your relationship with your body? And that's the listen, knowing yourself. What's your starting point? And what influenced that starting point? How that starting point come to be? We call it your body mindful baseline. Where are you right now today in your relationship with your body? Because we can get very caught up in comparison, right? Like I want to be that, I want to have my 12-year-old body back, or I just want to lose this weight, or I just want to look different, or I just, looking into the future. But what about right now? Yeah. Right. And so once we have our starting point, right, then we can begin to chart a path forward.
Yeah. Exactly.
And yeah.
Right. Yeah. I wish my boobs were where they were when I was 20, but that's never going to happen. I'm 60 now.
Right.
They're never going to, never going to happen. And so I don't have a problem with that, because I just know that's never going to happen. And they're still cute and fine, but I was like, so you do, but see, I'm at peace with that, so you have to start. These are good. These are also good lessons for anything you want to change in your life, not just your body. But I love that. So so you start with listening, and then you move to learn, right?
Learn, right, right, exactly. So this is where you kind of think about, well, what do I need to learn in order to, take a step forward? So this is something like looking at, say, your strengths and weaknesses, looking at your unique qualities, talents, and passions. Doing some self-study. This is where the chapters on food and fitness and social media and fashion come in, where we, provide exercises and opportunities for people to think about what certain words bring up in them, right? So kind of doing some study on what is your relationship to different language and what's that bringing up. And then after you take all that learning, and then you move into love, which is, practicing new wisdom for your inner life. This is where the yoga practices come in, where you're kind of working on your inner self, where you're wiring in new language, testing out new language, doing these practices, which, as we know, well, if you've practiced yoga, you know that, this is a very balancing practice. This is working on your physical self, your mental self, your spiritual, intellectual self, right? So there's it's just a very, special way to be with yourself, right? And then to live it, to go out and live it and to model it. And we provide some steps on how to do that.
Right. I think, the love part, I have practiced yoga and I still do. I think, not like you do, but I think of it almost as meditative. My practice is I know a lot of people, a lot of women want to talk, and it's a fun activity for them, and that's fine. But when I do my yoga practice, it's a very quiet inward thing.
Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. Yeah. Quiet and inward. Yeah.
It's a very quiet, and there's nothing wrong with the physical outward talking to each other thing either. But for me, it works because I don't have time to do a yoga class every day. So when I do my yoga practice, it's very meditative. And
absolutely.
I go into that. So do you have a separate meditation every day, or is that part of your yoga practice as well?
For me personally?
Yeah, you.
Or do you mean in the book?
No, you.
I spend I take quiet time every day. Yeah. And, when I first started practicing yoga, it meant I needed to drive to a studio, and then I needed to be there for at least an hour and a half, and it had to be a very vigorous practice. That's who I was 20 years ago. And now, after studying with Bob and just, growing and maturing and becoming older, and having less time, I don't really have the luxury of doing that anymore anyway.
Right.
I realized that, yoga can be pausing at a traffic light when the light's red and taking 5 breaths. It can be just sitting in a chair quietly and just being really present. I think of yoga as any activity that brings awareness. So maybe you're a gardener, and when you're gardening, you're very aware, you're very present, you're connected to what you're doing, you're just immersed in it. Like, that could be yoga, and the practices that we give in our book, they're not, full length practices. They're like, hey, take 10 minutes and do this. We try to make them very accessible because people do have busy lives. And I think doing this kind of work on body image, it takes endurance because it is so hard. It does bring up so much stuff, and I want to give everyone who's listening like a lot of compassion for that, because that's truth. That's hard work. So our practices are meant to kind of, 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, just to build it in, to start building up that endurance and giving yourself that little bit of space to devote to working on a more affirming relationship with your body.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Okay, we are halfway through. More than halfway through, actually.
Wow, that flew by.
I know. See, Jennifer, we are on the line with Jennifer Kreatsoulas. Did I say that right? Kreatsoulas.
Yes, perfect.
Good. Okay, the name of the book is Body Mindful Yoga, which you co-wrote with Robert Butera. It's out November 8th, Llewellyn, or unless you go on Llewellyn Worldwide Publishing website, you could get it now. It's excellent. I highly recommend this, especially if you have any issues with your body, which most of us do, and or you may not think you do, but you actually do if you keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. I highly suggest you get this book then. And I'm going to open the lines now. If there's anybody brave enough out there to call in, please do. 949-313-8880. Again, it's 949-313-8880. Otherwise, we're going to just continue chatting here. It's a very tough subject for a lot of people. So if they want to contact you, how can they do that?
They can contact me at email, which is Jennifer@yoga4, which is the number 4, eatingdisorders.com. So Jennifer@yoga4eatingdisorders.com, or through my website, which is yoga4eatingdisorders.com, which again, it's the number 4.
Right. So that's great, because people, this is a touchy subject. It is. People, and also the other thing is too, is this by the time they get up the nerve to call, they're like, how's it going to call? And then the show's over. So,
no problem. I welcome emails. I welcome anybody who wants to reach out to me. Absolutely.
Okay. And you are doing workshops on all of this too, correct?
Correct. Yes.
You traveling as well, or are they mostly in with a 5 and 7-year-old? I imagine you're home.
I am traveling. I have events obviously near Philly. I'm going to be heading to Baltimore, New York City, Los Angeles, Montreal, and hopefully a few other places as well.
Awesome. Some of my favorite places.
Super excited. Yeah, super excited.
We're here in LA, so I am here in LA, but this show runs all over. It runs in 79 different countries too. But for anybody that wants to know where you're going to be, especially for those my locals who are here in LA, they can go on your website, yoga4 eatingdisorders.com, right?
That's correct. A lot of the events are still being finalized, so they're not all listed on my website yet, but there's a few up, and there will be many more coming in all those areas that I mentioned.
Good. And you're doing Montreal, too. I grew up in Montreal. Actually, I'm British, and I grew up in London, and I'm a British citizen, Canadian citizen, and an American citizen. But I love Montreal. I love Montreal. It's one of my favorite.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. It's going to be my first time. Very excited.
Good. All right. Well, you've written a really great book, and with Robert. How was it co-writing? Was it interesting, or was it hard?
It was fantastic. It was really a really amazing experience, honestly. When Bob and I kind of joined forces to do that, he was very much like, you know what, I really want to empower you to own this material. You know, he certainly shared his wisdom and contributed a lot, but the body image piece really more came from me. And he really wanted to raise me up and empower me, and he really held true to that. And I learned so much from him because he's written several books before. So just having the opportunity to write a book with someone who's done this and is very masterful at it was a great learning experience. So in addition to just, having the ability to write a book, then having the learning, the mentoring through the process was, it was a dream for a first-time author. I couldn't have asked for a better experience.
Good for you. Well, he wouldn't have done it anyway. I know, because I know he's written. I read Meditation for Your Life. I've been studying this stuff for 100 years. So, and he also, I think he also wrote The Pure Heart of Yoga or something like that.
Yes.
Very similar.
Yes.
I'm up on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal teacher.
I know, because I've done 3. I just can't imagine collaborating, but I haven't written the type of book that you would want to collaborate on. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
And you have to pick the right person to do that with. So congratulations. Now, are you thinking of doing another one at all?
Yes, I'm sure I have a book or two more in me. Absolutely.
Good.
I'm not. Yeah. I'm just allowing that process to happen. I think I'll know when I know what it is. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. But I love that you're helping, because body image for so many women in this country, especially young women, it's a touchy subject. And one of the reasons it is become even more so is social media. And things like, you're looking at little models who are size 0 and always trying to, live up to that. It's in their face all the time, So I think it's really important that we do have some tools in our tool basket, which I think this is what your book is about, Body Mindful Yoga. Because then you change your perception, you change your words, you change your thought. The only way to rewire our brain is to, neurons that fire together, wire together. And the only way to do that is to repetition, practice over and over.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then pretty soon the mind and the body connect, and it doesn't matter if it's reality or not. It doesn't know the difference. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and that's why I think, embodiment practices are so key. It doesn't have to be yoga, but, bringing your body into the process of healing your mind, as I like to say, is pivotal, important. I don't think we can just, make up our minds to change something if we're not including our bodies in that, especially if our bodies are the thing that have become our enemy. You can't just keep pretending like you're making peace with that without getting to know it again.
Well, absolutely. There's nothing spiritual or psychologically correct about throwing pink paint on something and saying, "Oh, that's pretty." It's not.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah. And embodiment is, being in our bodies can be so scary. And that's a lot of the work that I do with my clients, finding safety in that process. It's hard.
Finding
hard work.
Safety is a really good way to put it. Finding safety. Yeah. It takes time. It takes a while, I mean, it took me a long time to like myself. All of my 20s were really hard. In my 20s. One of the things I do at the end of my meditation, which don't tell anyone, although
79 countries are listening right now.
Yeah, don't tell anyone, but at the end of my meditation every day, I kiss the back of my hand. I just do that because I love me. It's not narcissistic at all. It's not. It's honoring. It's honor because I say namaste to myself. I don't say it out loud, but then I kiss the back of my hand because that to me is just like it's about love. It's not about narcissism. It's not about narcissism, because I end this show, because you won't hear that part because you'll be off the line by then. I end my shows every week by saying, be you to the full, because that's what's really beautiful. So I don't care what anybody looks like on the outside. If you are happy and fun and having, liking, loving that's not coming from some narcissistic place. It's coming from just honoring who and what you are.
Yeah, I mean, I love that word, honor, right? I mean, when we can make that shift in perspective that we're, being conceited or whatever you want to call it, if I like, for liking ourselves, but when we can make that shift to, well, no, I'm honoring myself, that's a really empowering moment, and I bet once you come into that moment, you're standing a little taller, your eyes are probably a little more relaxed, you're embodying a sense of calm or maybe confidence, right? We don't realize how heavy the guilt and the shame and the self-doubt are that they pull our shoulders forward. We walk around hunched because we want to hide, right? And it's, and again, compassion for everyone out there who's feeling that right now, because that's a very real feeling. But, Bob and I really believe, like, there's a better way, and we don't have to wait for the world to change, because it's, we can do our part in helping that process, but really we got to do it within ourselves first. And I think the language piece, at least it's my hope that the language piece gives some power to people. They can feel like they have some power in their relationship with their body, that they don't have to just be, subject to all the images that are just flashing all around, and that feeling of lack. There's a different way. It doesn't have to stay like that.
Absolutely. It's true. And if I say this all the time, if you want your world to change, you have to change. That's key, because nothing changes out there till you change in there. And the whole thing with body image, I mean, that really, I've always got to a place over doing this practice for so long, 100 years at least. I got to a place where I was actually okay with myself, but I took it to a whole other level after chemotherapy. Last December, I had not one hair on my body. So, you're bald, and then that's only been 10 months, but that didn't get me so much. What caught me was I had no eyelashes and no eyebrows. I looked like a little alien creature, and I know that I could paint things on, and most of the time I did, and sometimes I forgot, and I forgot that I looked weird, and even when my hair grew in a little bit, I stopped wearing the scarves, and people would go, "Oh, look, your hair's so short," and I'd say, "Yeah, it's cute, isn't it? It's cute." But that took it to a whole different level, because until then, I had never been pushed that far. And then I realized that, I still like me. I did.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't tell anyone again.
Yeah, no, I won't tell the other, 79 countries.
I know. Yeah. Okay. People, we're running out of time here. So if you do have a question, call or text me if you're afraid. People out there do know that my business line is 949-735-3983. Yeah. People have done that before too. I just got a text that they're loving you. So,
oh, yay.
Phoenix. Someone in Phoenix, Arizona is buying your book. So.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Many thanks.
Oh, see, they don't call, but they're listening. So, and somebody else.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Fort Lauderdale. Yay, Fort Lauderdale. Love her. Interesting show. Please tell her I enjoyed listening to her. So, well, we're not gone yet, so don't go away yet.
No, thank you.
No, and if you are brave enough, we have a few minutes. That's about all that's left. 949-313-8880 If you still want to try a quick question, you can. Otherwise, we're winding down. You were delightful, Jennifer. I love you. This has been a great show.
Oh my goodness.
And I
Thank you. Well,
I love anything that's helping people, but this is a real problem because it's different if you're facing cancer, you're facing this, you're facing that. That's a very real, but then when it comes to body image, we don't realize how dangerous that is. Things like anorexia, bulimia, being overweight, all these things they just really are just as bad and just as dangerous and just as hard on our physical selves and mental selves as any other disease. So I'm thrilled you're bringing it to the forefront and talking about it.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you. I that means a lot, and I appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
You are. That's why you're on the show. And the name of the book, again, is Body Mindful Yoga. And you're Jennifer Kreatsoulas.
Mm-hmm.
Almost.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to spell that for everybody because actually I am.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Everybody who knows me calls me Jen K, Jennifer K, and it's really okay. I always say Greek by marriage. It's all right. It took me a year to figure out how to say it too.
Good, but they don't even need to know how to spell your name anyway, because really if they want to find you, they need to go to yogaforeatingdisorders.com, and that's the number for Yoga for Eating Disorders. And that's awesome. So we are kind of winding down here. Is there anything I didn't talk about? I mean, it's all about, we talked about social media and everything like that, and in fashion we didn't even get into, but we're running out of time. I kind of want to talk about the language of belonging, because you did a whole chapter on that, not just with the social media. So I mean, because I think that's what gets people, they feel separated. Do you want to talk about that just a little bit to wind down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think, belonging is one of our most natural instincts, right? We all want to belong, we think back to like the beginning of civilization and tribes, right? Like we need to belong to survive, right? Protection and safety and nourishment and all of it. So this is very natural. And I think, social media really taps into that. Right? We want to belong, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think our book wants to offer people an opportunity to be like, well, okay, so you belong, and that's great. Has it crossed into a line that you rely on external validation to feel worthy, right? Especially, where our bodies are concerned. And, yoga, like to use your words earlier, like it's an inward journey, right? And so when we can learn to validate ourselves, we really become liberated from needing to look like anybody else, act like anybody else, be anybody else. And, internal validation is not a skill that we're necessarily taught. We are trained to seek external validation, from the time we're children, getting our grades in school and our gold stars, and that's not a judgment. It's just a fact, right? Like that sets up that mentality in a lot of ways. And yoga is a path to going inward and learning to validate oneself. And that's a long journey, right? But it's one well worth it. And when it comes to body image, if we can learn to validate ourselves, we can walk a little taller in the world. We can feel like we fit in our unique way.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I brought that last point up, because I thought there's so much to talk about. We could be on the phone for hours and days, but I just wanted to say, I wanted to talk about that a little bit, because that is so important. Because again, it's not about being conceited or narcissistic or anything like that. It's about just honoring who and what you are. We're all spiritual beings on a journey. Our body is our vehicle, our suit, our vessel that we are using while we're here. So if we really remember who we are, we gotta love that suit, because I've always told people it's kind of like we're all, if you had a bar of gold and you put it in a box and the box got old and wrinkled and dented and beat up and whatever, or maybe the box stayed really pretty. It doesn't matter. What's important is that there's still a bar of gold inside, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think of
Mm-hmm.
our bodies that way. And then if you kind of go there and with all the tools in your book and everything else, then you honor who you are, and you don't have to belong and need validation from someone else to tell you that you're, you know, pretty, that you're smart, that you're this, that you're that.
Mm-hmm.
You just get
Mm-hmm.
it yourself, and then you do have a different, you radiate a kind of confidence that's not narcissistic. It's just charming. It's charismatic, because charisma used to be a biblical word that just meant someone that, you know, enchants and delights.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably making that up right now. It was along those lines. It was along those lines, though. It was. And I remember reading that years ago. And that's the other reason I like this book, is because it takes you there slowly and gradually, along with the yoga practice, which I think yoga is good for everybody anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It really just kind of guides you along into that where it's okay. And then when you get that acceptance of yourself, then whatever issues you have are so much easier to deal with. And then it becomes a shift in being. So you're not on a diet, you're just eating differently. You're not going to like starve yourself, you're going to be healthy. You're going to, you know, it's that kind of shift. And that's what makes permanent changes possible with anything. Right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're done it.
Well said.
Yeah, we've done it. We're at the end of the show, Jennifer. We're going to let you go back to your beautiful daughters and your family and have a nice evening. I love the book. It's Body Mindful Yoga. It's out everywhere on Amazon and everything November 8th. Unless you want to go to Llewellyn Worldwide, you can order it there. Jennifer, you've got a great website, yogaforeatingdisorders.com. You've been great. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much, Servet. This has been a blast, and it really means so much to me to be able to talk with you and your community. So thank you for having me.
It went fast, didn't it? I mean, holy cow.
It did.
Yeah. So it's
did.
like
well, you just call on me anytime you want to talk about body image or
I will.
Any of this stuff. I'm your woman.
I will. You are my go-to, trust me. And you go, girl. You get out there and keep doing the work. Keep doing the work.
You keep kicking that cancer's ass. You got it?
I got it. All right. Take care. Thank you for joining me today. You take care. Good night.
Oh, thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Wow, that was a great show. She's awesome. And again, yogaforyou.com, the number 4. You know where to find me, servethasan.com, servethasan.com. My website is brand new. It's www.servethasan.com. And you can email me there as well at servethasan.com. Have you heard my name enough yet? Anyway, it's got a few little things that need to be ironed out, but it's brand new and it's up and running. So, and there's a tab there for kicked cancer. So that's going to be a foundation, and everything's going to be going into ovarian cancer research, and we're kicking it for sure. So anyway, I have a great show for you next week live. I have a woman on the show named Stacey DeMarco. She is considered Australia's most trusted witch. And she's also a best-selling author, of course, because it's Intuitive Inc. But I got to say, she is awesome. It's Halloween. It's our Halloween show. So you want a witch? I got a witch. I got one of the best. And she's going to talk to us all about that and her new book. I don't have the name of that in front of me, but it's kind of a lunar calendar kind of thing where she incorporates talk about not just lunar stuff, but gods and goddesses and improving relationships, increasing your wealth, boosting your vitality, all kinds of, removing obstacles. She's on it. And she is. In Australia, she's a big more than Australia, but in Australia, she's a really big deal. So I got her on the show next week, which I'm delighted about. And I've got lots of new things coming next year. The website's up and Kick to Cancer's up, and we're getting there. So you'll be hearing a lot more from me. I'll start blogging and doing my podcasts are out too, but things are hard to find right now, so I'm going to get them in a better shape. I also have new equipment for the show. All kinds of things are happening. So starting in January, just getting better and bigger and better. And in the meantime, be you to the full, because that is what's truly beautiful. Love you all, and I'll be here next week, same time, same place. Take care. Good night.